Hello everybody, good evening to you all. I hope you are all well. Hello. Firstly, I would like to ask you to give me a thumbs up if the volume is okay for you. Can you hear me? How is the volume? Is it good? Perfect. Thank you very much. So, happy Monday to you all. My name is, thank you. My name is Drew. I'm an English language consultant. I'm here with you every Monday to help you with any questions that you have, different topics related to English, and to help you improve your English language skills. So I hope you have all had a wonderful weekend and a fantastic Monday. Today, what we're going to look at are, those small, irritating words that you have in English and you're not sure whether to use, which one to use. Should I use on? Should I use in? Should I use at? Prepositions. So we're going to look firstly at prepositions related to time, and depending on how much time we have after that, we're going to look at prepositions related to place. If you have any questions, then any questions related to this subject or related to any other subject, then please ask me. If you can't hear me, then tell me. I'll try to shout. Any questions, please ask. So let's get started. So let's actually start with in. Okay, so in. What time prepositions do we use in? Can anybody give me a clue? Well, I know. Does anybody know? Firstly, months of the year. We don't say on January. Many people make the mistake when they say on January. When we're talking about the months of the year, we always use in. For example, in May, in February. If you're just, and I have to stress, if you're just talking about the month, the preposition will be in. Years as well, very good. Years, in 2019. And so if we put both of these together, the preposition will of course still be in. I went to Venezuela in May 2018. So the preposition for years will always be in. Anything else? When else do we use in? Months, years. What about certain sections of the day? Can anybody tell me? For example, we say in the morning. In the morning. And remember here, you do need to use the article, not in morning, in the morning. So if we say in the morning, what else would we say? After morning? In the afternoon? And I think your situation is the same as mine now. In the evening. In the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. We use time prepositions here as well. We use in as a preposition here as well. So let's move on and talk about, okay, we're not finished with in, but I'm going to give you the more common ways that we use it to begin with, and then we'll move on. So let's look at at. When do we use at time prepositions? Can anybody tell me? It's very common. We probably use this one the most. At. When do we use at? Good. At noon. And so when we say at noon, what do we actually mean? Good. At night. At night, at noon. At night, if you can see, this is a little bit different from in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon. We actually say at night. Very good. At noon, at the weekends. And because at noon is actually 12 p.m, that means that any time that we use will also be at. So we say at 1 o'clock, at 2:40 p.m. So any time the preposition is going to be at. At 3 o'clock, for example. At 3 o'clock or at 7:45 p.m. So anything to do with the exact time, the clock time. At noon, at midnight, the preposition is going to be exactly that, at. Okay, so we've got at weekends or at the weekend. Can you think of any other time where we might use at? I know it's slightly different in Russia, but it's something that's coming up very fast. A time of the year where we celebrate. So, at Christmas. Now, when we talk about Christmas, or when we say at Christmas, we're not talking about Christmas Day. We're talking, or even Christmas Eve. We're talking about the period of Christmas. For example, I could say, I'm staying with my family at Christmas. Now, if I am talking about the exact day, which preposition do we use? Very common. What preposition do we use when we're talking about the exact day? Could be a Monday. Could be a Friday. Could be Christmas Day. Could be New Year's Eve. What preposition do we use? Somebody knows this? Actually, I think everybody should know this. On, thank you. So, on a Christmas day, on Christmas Day, we don't say a Christmas Day. on Christmas Day. So at Christmas, I'm spending time with my family, and on Christmas Day, we are going to eat turkey. Exactly. On Christmas Day. Any day, even if we put it in a date. So on the 23rd, on the 23rd of November. Any day, the preposition will be on. Now, let's look a little bit more about these days. So, some people find it a little bit confusing when you go in to talk about the next Monday. Okay, so today is Monday, and I will say, I'm working on Monday. Now, if I'm talking about Monday to come, then I would actually move the preposition and I would say, I'm streaming next. So, I'm streaming next Monday. I don't say I'm streaming on next Monday. So we have next, last, this, and every. Next, last, this, and every. So if we use any of these, then you remove the preposition. I'll give you some examples. So, I saw my best friend on Sunday. I saw my... Maybe this isn't the best sentence because Sunday was yesterday. Okay, it's better. I was my best friend. Sorry. Okay, excuse me. I saw my best friend on Thursday. So if I say I saw my best friend on Thursday, I can only mean the last Thursday that has gone past. Today's Monday. If I say this Thursday, I'm wrong because this is a new week. Look at the weeks as this week, next week, and last week. So the other option that I have is to say, I saw my best friend last Thursday. I saw my best friend last Thursday. So remember, if you're talking about this, next, last, every, remove the preposition. My sister plays My sister plays badminton every Wednesday. My sister plays badminton every Wednesday. Now, it's not just when we talk about the days of the week do we have to consider next, last and every, but also when we're talking about the years, the months. So we say the preposition is in, we say in January, in February, in March. But if I say next, I don't know, next February, then again I remove the preposition. Last May. Remember, last May is not May 2019. That would be this May. So anything this year is still this year, unless I say in. If I say in May, I saw my friend in May, that means I saw my friend in May 2019. If I say I went to Paris last May, I mean I went to Paris May 2018. Oops, let me switch this off. Okay. Good. With years, we just have this year, last year, next year, and every year. And of course, even when we use this, you don't use the preposition. Good. So moving on, some more, I'm going to say, expressions that we use related to time. In a while, which means in a short time from now. I'm going to go to the shop in a while. In a moment. In a moment. In a moment, I would say, is shorter than a while. And this is something, a split second. I'll do this in a moment. A while is a longer period of time. An interesting one here. In the meantime. In the meantime. Does anybody understand what this could mean? In the meantime. Can anybody tell me what in the meantime would mean? In the meantime, this is the time between two actions. For example, I could say something like, I'm going to, I don't have too much imagination at the moment. I'm going to go to the shop and buy some chicken. In the meantime, you can make a salad. And this means while I am doing that. So while the action is occurring in the meantime. Then we have for the time being. For the time being. Does anybody know what this can mean? For the time being. So we use for the time being when it means that you settle for something. It's good enough for now. An example could be, I haven't bought the tickets yet, so maybe not the best example. I haven't bought the jacket that I want, so I will have to use last year's jacket for the time being. So for now, for the time being means for now. And now we're coming to something that's a little bit confusing for quite a few people. I'm going to see if any of you know the difference. In time and on time. In time and on time. Does anybody know what the difference is? In time and on time. What is the difference? I'll tell you. So, think of in time as being the exact time. For example, so on time as being the exact time. The 12 o'clock train left on time. The 12 o'clock train left on time. This means that the 12 o'clock train left at 12 o'clock. So if anything happens on time, it happens according to schedule. It happens at the time that it's supposed to happen. And this is on time. Paul was at work on time. If I say Paul was at work on time, that means that Paul was at work at the scheduled time. He was at work at the time that work started. So this is on time. Now, in time, we say to be, in time for something. If you are going to be in time for something, that means you are going to be there before the scheduled time. For example, if I want to take the 12 o'clock train, and if the 12 o'clock train is going to leave on time, what's going to happen if I get to the train station at 12 o'clock? Actually, I'm going to miss the train. I need to be not at the train station, but I need to be on the platform before 12 o'clock. So when you are somewhere before the action is taken, before the action happens, then you are in time for the action. So I was in time for the 12 o'clock train, which left on time. Let me write that for you. Okay, so I was in time for the 12 o'clock train which left on time. So before the scheduled event, and the scheduled event happened according to schedule. We have another expression, and this is in good time. We use in good time when you give yourself more than enough time to do something. So, for example, I could say that I left for the airport in good time because I wanted to go through duty free and have something to eat. So you give yourself more than enough time. More than enough time, in good time. Also confusing, we have these at the end and in the end. At the end and in the end. Does anybody know the difference? Yes, there is a difference here as well. At the end and in the end. Can anybody tell me? First example, I get paid at the end of the month. I get paid at the end of the month. When we're talking about the end of a period, then we use at the end. So the fans cheered their team at the end of the football game. At the end of the film, everybody cheered the performance. So at the end. In the end, this means something like eventually. Let me give you an example. Exactly. So here's an example. Mark waited for his friend for an hour. In the end, he went home. Eventually, or as you said, finally, he went home. Good. Any questions about any of these? I can see that you guys are so clued up on this. Whoops. Okay. So we've talked about at the end, in the end, in time, on time, in good time. Let's look at a few more time prepositions. It's quite common that we use during, while, and meanwhile. When we're talking about actions that are happening at the same time of another action. For example, my father fell asleep during the concert. My father fell asleep during the concert. If we change the structure, we can say the same thing with while. While the concert was playing, my father fell asleep. While the concert was playing, my father fell asleep. Meanwhile, it's a little bit different, although we're still talking about two situations, but it can be a little different. For example, so something like this. My father fell asleep. Meanwhile, the concert went on. My father fell asleep. Meanwhile, the concert went on. Good. Any more questions or any questions at all? Oops. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, due. When would we use this in connection to time? Think of public transport. Can anybody tell me, when would we use due connected to public transport? Connected to time, I should say. Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming. So we could say something like, better late than never. Thank you for joining us. So, her flight was due an hour ago. Her flight was due an hour ago. So when we use due, in this case, in this way, we are saying that it is scheduled. When something is due, it is scheduled. Now if you look, I'm going to use the same word, but it's going to have a different meaning. So her flight was late, or her flight was delayed due to snow. So in the first sentence, due means scheduled. But what does due mean in the second sentence? It's the same as a very common word. What word is that? Because of, exactly. Her flight was late because due to snow, because of the snow. Sorry, in the first sentence I missed the verb. Her flight was due, it should be. Her flight was due an hour ago. Yes, because of. Perfect. You guys are too clever. Confusing words, continued, yes, of course. By and. By and until. These two are commonly confused in English. I can understand why, because they kind of mean the same thing, but actually they don't. So, yes, this is why they're confused, but I'm going to try to explain as best as I can, so there'll be no more mistakes when it comes to by and until. So, when you think of, well, let me give you the sentence first. So, mother said, you can say mother said that, but mother said she is going to be home by 6 p.m. By 6 p.m. So when we use by, in this case, if you think of when the sentence is spoken and 6 p.m., so any time between when the sentence is spoken and 6 p.m. So if you like, we could say this. Mother said she's going to be home no later than 6 p.m. No later than 6 p.m. So that means between the time the sentence is said and 6 p.m. So 6:01 p.m. Mother should have been back, well, at least 1 minute before that. But it means any time between when the sentence is said and the time that is mentioned, so by 6 p.m. Let me give you a sentence with until. So we can look at this in a couple of different ways. The first one, I have to be at the office until 4 p.m. This means that the earliest I can leave is at 4 p.m. And I can say the earliest. So the earliest I can leave the office is 4 p.m. Now, when we are using until, it doesn't have to be with anything that's scheduled. It can be with other things that aren't scheduled. For example, we can say, I have to stay in until the rain stops, for example. I have to stay in until the rain stops. Or he cannot go out. Sorry. this one. He cannot go out until his fever dies down. He cannot go out until his fever dies down. So obviously when it comes to when the rain's going to stop or when his fever dies down, we can't schedule this. So it's possible to use until with situations that aren't actually scheduled. Good. Any other questions? Good. Let me see what else I can give you related to time. Due to down, during, plus within, of course. Within. So we use within when we're talking about the space between two periods. Loosely speaking, so if I say I'll be back within a few hours, and even if we say a few hours, what is a few hours? Normally when we say a few hours, we mean no more than 3. And so I'll be back within a few hours means between now and 3 hours from now. But a few hours, it can be, 1, 2, maybe even 4. Now and a few hours, between now and a few hours, I will be back. So within. We can even say something like this. I'll call you within the day. Sorry, making too many mistakes today. I'll call you within the day. I'll call you within the day. I'll call you within the next few days. I'll call you within the week. So, but again, it's quite, it's a little bit more flexible. Okay, when it comes to time prepositions, that's almost all of them. Couple more. So we can say through and throughout. If you're using during instead of within, no, sometimes you can change the preposition and it gives you, as in this case, it will give you, or it will give the person that you're speaking to the same information, but maybe the feeling will be a little bit different. So it's possible. It's possible. Maybe if you give me a situation, or if you give me an example, I can tell you. But yes, it's not a problem. For example, during, let me think. I'll be in touch within the next few hours. I'll be in touch during the next few hours. It's yes, it gives the same information. Throughout. So we can say throughout the day, throughout the week, between now and the rest of this time frame. And we can use through to mean the same thing. Throughout is probably the better option. Of course, when we use for related to time, we're talking about how long, but I think you all know that. For a day, for 10 minutes. I've been waiting here for a long time. I'm not sure if anybody knows this. Prior to. We use this when it means something like before this has happened, so, or before this situation. So prior to moving to London, she lived in Sheffield. Before moving to London, she lived in Sheffield. And of course you have before. Before you do this, you should do that. So prior to, before. In case of till, until, we looked at that. Yes, I think that is most of them. We looked at due to. I'm just looking now. Of course, there are more prepositions. I'm just trying to give you them related to time. Okay, so rounding up a few things now. When we are looking at days of the week, the preposition is going to be on. Exact time, the preposition is going to be at. Months of the year, the preposition is going to be in. Years, the preposition is going to be in. If you add this, next, last, or every, if you add this to days of the week, months of the year, you remove the preposition. So we say this Monday, every Wednesday, last July, next April. We don't say on next or in next. You completely remove the preposition. Excuse me. In time and on time. On time is the exact time. So the train was on time. The train was there at the time that it was supposed to arrive. In time, to be there before a scheduled event. So I was in time for the bus. I got to the bus before the bus left. Actually, I need to say a scheduled bus. I was in time for the film at the cinema. I was in time for the 7 o'clock film. So I was at the cinema before the film started. To be in time, on time. At the end, in the end. Somebody said that correctly, that in the end is the same as finally. Finally, eventually, in the end. At the end means the end. At the end of the month. At the end of the road. Actually, the end. So we use at the end or in the end. For, during, while, meanwhile. We're talking about situations that happen at the same time. My father fell asleep during the cinema. While the film was playing, my father fell asleep. For, how long something has happened for. She's been living here for 1 month. You need to keep on mixing for 3 minutes. So how long something has happened, or how long something is expected to happen. We use the preposition for. By and until, before I get to that, due, when something is scheduled. So the train is due at 7 o'clock. Until and by. Also very confusing for many people because of how similar they can be. When you think of by, you're talking about the latest possible time. So I will be here by 1 p.m. This means no later than 1 p.m. Until, this means the latest that you will stay at a place. So I have to stay here until my boss says I can leave, or I have to stay here until the rain stops, or I have to stay here until 7 p.m. So yes, a little bit different. That's it. Anybody have any questions about today? Actually, any questions about anything? Okay, so we're going to end the stream for today. Next week we're going to continue with some prepositions, this time related more to place. And also we're going to be looking at verbs plus prepositions, so prepositions related to place plus verb plus preposition. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that you found it useful. I look forward to seeing all of you next Monday. I have to say, health permitting. I'm due to go to hospital, but I hope to be here by next Monday to have this stream. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Have a wonderful week, and see you all next Monday. Good evening. Bye-bye.